Who buys one of these? What's the purpose of it? The damage, it's got a crease just there. Like I say, all bubbly and crusty and horrible. Look what Chris just dropped back. Hi everyone, welcome back to Chops Garage. Once again, I've gone hell for leather on a cheap car. If you remember the last video, my videos are all, just pointing this out by the way, my video is a bit like a blog, so a lot of what I talk about might not make sense if this is the first time you come across the channel, so you might need to go back and watch some of the previous videos, maybe even subscribe. But yes, so I've gone a bit hell for leather on what is going to be a very cheap car. We spoke about the Citroen C1 last time that had just been through its MOT. Come back with some advisories, but we weren't going to go too far with it because it was a previous Cat S structurally damaged, and some of the damage is still there, which we can see in a minute. So I was just going to give it a quick wash over and put it up for sale at £19.95. Well, as per normal, I've gone overboard. Took the wheel trims off, sprayed black behind them. Obviously they've got tyre dressing on there as well. Given the body a polish inside. I've wet cleaned the seats in here. They've all had a wet clean. All the plastics have been cleaned down. So it's looking really smart actually. This is going to make somebody a really nice little car. I took photos before I put all this back in again. I took photos of the damage in my previous video. I was going to put that in the listing so people knew exactly what it was. It's a dent in the boot basically, in the actual sort of wheel well more than anything. Yeah, and we gave the engine bay a clean. Actually, it's a really clean little car actually. Someone had a dog in the back, so we needed to clean the rear seats down a bit. But we have done loads of these Citroen C1s, haven't we? They are tough little cookies. Engine bay's nice and tidy, fairly new Bosch battery. We did a clutch on it, didn't we, when we first got in, because clutch was gone on it. Chris did me a cheap deal on putting the clutch in, and he did an oil and filter on it at the same time. So for £19.95, like I said in the previous video, to have a new clutch, a new MOT, and a service, even with a Cat S, seems a good buy. Now I said one of the advisories was for the rear brake pipes being dirty or being covered in grease. So what I thought I'd do is get the old jet wash on there and blast them. And as you can see, now I've blasted it all off here, you can see the springs look like new, and those brake pipes are actually clean as a whistle. There is no rust on them at all. So it was just that they were covered in dirt. I wish I'd done that obviously before it went in for MOT. Both sides are the same. We just blasted them with a jet washer. The shocks look a little bit scabby, but again it's just surface rust with a powder coat. There's no leaking on them at all. So that was really the only advisories. Other than that, it was the boot floor here, and it was that little gap there that I think they were noting on the MOT. You can see here the damage. It's got a crease just there where the edge of the boot has been hit up here and sort of squished that wheel well in a bit. I presume what happened was someone bought the car back from the insurance and didn't do the work, just left it as it is. The biggest question you get asked when you're selling a Cat car is, what was the damage? So I suppose the nice thing with this one is we'll be able to show what the damage was, and you can see how light it was from that. Passed an MOT, the guys deem it as safe, they're happy with it, and that's all a Cat S needs to do actually, is go through an MOT, which, you know, again, I'd say perhaps that shouldn't be the case. Perhaps it should be checked over more thoroughly, but my guys were directed to this when it went down for MOT. I asked them to look it over and see what their opinion on it was, and they're happy enough with it. Obviously, like I say, they note it on the MOT for their own safety, and as we said in the advert, we'll be open about it. I expect to see a raft of comments now, especially a lot of the trolls, and we'll see what people are saying. But I think we all know that people drive around in cars like this all the time without thinking anything of it. Now, as you can see, there's an awful lot that goes into cleaning the car this thoroughly. So we're going to put all of that away so the place looks a bit tidier, and then we're going to talk about the Part X I just picked up. So yep, had a call from a dealer mate today offering me a Peugeot 3008. Nothing I'd really go out my way to get normally. Never driven one. Now I'm a little bit concerned about myself. I've driven it back and I really like it, and the reason I say I'm concerned is I looked at it and I thought, who buys one of these? What's the purpose of it? It's not like really off the ground like a 4x4. I guess it's a little bit higher. It's not a small 4x4, but it's not really that big either. It kind of sits in the middle. It just looks a bit bloated, and I didn't really get it. So I'm not really selling the car, am I, at all? And then they told me it was a 1.2, and what is it called? The pure PureTech, is it 1.2? So the 1.2 3-cylinder petrol. I assume it's 3-cylinder. Might have a look in a second. I assumed it was the same engine that was in the little Peugeot 208s and that Cactus I just sold, that Cactus Automatic. So yeah, I wasn't particularly sort of thrilled about the engine either, but I got in it and drove it back, and it goes really well. It did not feel underpowered at all. I expected it to feel underpowered, but actually it felt quite nippy. And sitting in it, sitting up quite high, you know, I can kind of get you get that seating position almost like a 4x4 where you're sitting that a bit higher, and it feels super comfy because it's really airy. We'll go through some of the features of it later on. And I kind of got it on the way home. I don't know who on earth would go out of their way looking for one of these, because if you hadn't driven one, you wouldn't really appreciate it. You'd be like me, like I was at the beginning, saying, well, what's the point of it? But if you actually went and gave one a go, I think you'd be quite surprised. Yeah, so I actually found myself liking it on the drive back, perhaps because it's just a really good car as well. 2015, 76,000 miles, a bit newer than a lot of the other stuff I have. Drives really, really well, and condition wise, there's no need to get the paint out on this one. All the paint is in really good condition. All the alloys are in good condition. There's some very minor sort of blistering of the lacquer on a couple of them, but nowhere near enough to merit doing a refurb on them. It's got a really nice spec. It's full leather, and it's got that panoramic glass roof. It needs a good clean, obviously, but we've got heated seats. Oh, we've got, yeah, I'll have to get the power on to show you some of the other toys. But yeah, everything inside, condition-wise, is in really nice nick. It's not going to need an awful lot at all to clean up. Well, the leather's bang on. Now, I did think it would be like a 7-seater or something. And I assume maybe that's an option with these. I don't know. Comment down below if you know if you can get these as 7-seaters as well, because the boot's so big and it has this second bit here that comes down, a bit like a rangy, so you can sit there and watch the kids play football at the weekend or whatever else. I guess it's not quite posh enough for polo, is it? I don't know. You got that nice trick where you got the handles here to flick the seats forwards. I always think that's a nice feature. But yeah, under here I expected to find another row of seats, but instead I've got just loads of room for a spare wheel sort of setup. So yeah, comment down below, but I presume that there is an option for a 7-seater on these as well, which you'd think would make them more desirable. But in my experience, some people seem to balk at having 7-seaters. They're like, oh, I don't need 7 seats. Like, oh, they fold away. Does it really matter? Anyway, so go back. Let's go the other side and do that. I'm obviously doing something wrong, unless we found our first fault with it. I don't think so. I think it's just used the error, that one. What's in the way? Oh, that's why. He's trying to trap the seatbelt on there, aren't you, silly boy? There we go. You've got your little ski hatch and drop down cup holder. All this leather, like I said, is immaculate. These are interesting fitted carpets, aren't they? Kind of fit. Oh, they've got little cubby holes underneath them. More for me to have to hoover out. Yeah, but condition wise, there's a lot of dirt here. It just all needs a good clean. A bit dirty in the cup holders. But overall, I'd say as a Part X car, they don't normally come in quite this clean. We've got proxies there. What have we got in the front? Sport Active GT Radial. Don't know that brand. Right, so let's show you some of the features inside, because it's got quite a lot going on. I say I'm showing you a bit more on this one because we haven't had one of these before, and perhaps some of you are looking at something mid-size. It might be of interest to see what this is all about. I'm definitely leaving the door open while we do this, because I am baking, especially from cleaning out that little Citroen C1. Gosh, that looks bright, doesn't it, on camera? So you got the pop-up sat-nav. Now, that was the first thing on any of these. If you remember, I got a 308 estate in, and the dramas I had trying to get, you know, with a non-functioning screen up here. So that was the first thing I checked. Does it work? And it does do all the sat-nav and do the stereo and all that. So you've got all that up there on that screen. That can be folded down as well. Can it? No, I think we might have found a first fault. Oh no, it does fold down, sorry. It's being unfair to it. That's an adjustment for you to decide how far you want to tilt it back. Oh, look at that. So it works exactly as it should then. Ideal. And then you've got all these buttons along here, and at first I didn't know what they were all about, but when I turned the car on, we've got 76,000 and 48 miles. It seems to have averaged 47 miles to the gallon, which seems good for a car this size. We've got half a tank of fuel, so you know we're going for a test drive. Yeah, look, little screen pops up. It's got one of those pop-up, turn the heater off. It's got one of those pop-up little screens. What do you call those? I don't know. Anyway, all these buttons here, what they do is let you decide what position you want that screen. You can tilt it back and forth, I guess, depending on your height. I forget what that one does. And then that one lets you close it away completely. So that's quite fancy. And then here we've got the electric blind for the full panoramic roof, which is massive. Got nice bird poos on it right now. I don't think I'd want it open today. The sun's too strong. I think I'd bake. And then we've got parking sensors, air conditioning. Well, dual climate, isn't it? Because it's got mono on it. 6-speed gearbox. Like I say, the biggest thing that surprised me on this is how nippy it was for the size of the car. I honestly thought with that 1.2 it would be dead as dodo. Now imagine by this point I got loads of comment down below going wet belt, wet belt, wet belt, which if none of you know what that means, on these engines, these 1.2s, by the way, there's no engine lights and you can see it's idling lovely. It runs sweet as a nut. Yeah, on these engines they have a cam belt, but it runs within the engine within oil. And what Peugeot found out, as normal with these things when they do new engines, is that no one actually worked out whether the belt was going to be happy in oil. And it turns out the belts break down and start to block the oil filter, oil pickup on these. So they need regular oil changes, they need good service history, and they need a wet belt every, I think, is 5 or 6 years. So this one has got a service history. It's 2016-17, 18-19, 20-22. So it's missed the 21 COVID year job. But none of them say cam belt on any of them, and I haven't got receipts for these services. So we're going to have to assume it hasn't had one, and we're going to have to do a wet belt on it, which is obviously quite costly, but it's the best thing to do. As far as that's concerned, I think as long as they're done every sort of 5 or 6 years and you keep the servicing regular, I think they will do the mileage. I think, again, most of the horror stories come from poorly maintained ones. Got electronic handbrake, which is all right, isn't it? It's not one of my favourites. What else have we got on here? Some traction control, some alarms, all that kind of stuff. But I think, yeah, what I want to do is, we haven't done it for a while, so we're going to take it for a little spin and yeah, just show it, because like I say, it's got half a tank in it, so I'm going to use some of that anyway. But take it in for a spin and show the score with it, because like I say, I was impressed. I don't know whether to be worried about myself. I think as middle age kicked in really badly. I've had my midlife crisis with my 911, and now I'm liking one of these Peugeots. So yeah, perhaps a midlife crisis has properly kicked into play, guys. Here we go. I'm up into 6th gear already. It's at 55 miles an hour, 2000 RPM. It's only a 1.2 petrol, as I said, but even now, if I put my foot down, it goes on a nice sort of chunk of torque and starts to get up and go straight away. There's no hesitation. I've not had to drop it out of 6th. I know we're currently going a bit downhill, but it picks up really well. Feels ever so nice and spacious in here. You've got loads of elbow room. Like I say, you're sitting out a bit higher as well, so you can see a bit further ahead. I don't know why, it's always just nice sitting a bit higher, isn't it? But even coming to this sort of incline here, we're in 6th gear. Put my foot down, it's pulling really nicely. So like I said, I am thoroughly, oh, is he going? I am thoroughly impressed. So I'm having a bit of a chilled Sunday. I'm cracking on with the MGB. I've driven that the last couple of days with the sun being like it is. I love driving that car so much. It's so nice to have a classic that starts on the button, runs like a champ, performs really well. Still really loving those tyres from Blockley. Not sponsored content, but if you remember, I had square modern tyres on with a square edge, and then I found these Blockley tyres that are replicas of the original, like cross-ply type, which have a more rounded edge to them, and it just, the car handles so much better. But if you remember last time I had the car, I attacked it with a screwdriver. It was another nice Saturday afternoon, and I attacked it with a screwdriver and just scraped all the bubbling rusty bits off and treated them, didn't I? And just put some paint over the top to protect it in between. Well, today I've been fiddling around. I'm going to, obviously, as I find a little bit of time here and there, I'm going to work my way around. Again, not with the idea of getting the concourse finish, but an idea of getting it protected, looking decent, ready for when at some point it does have a full respray. So this morning I've been working on this area here. If you remember, this was all rusted and bubbling up all around the seam here. So I sanded back the rough paint, very thin skim of filler just to blend in the edge of the paint, because obviously this car's about 5 layers of paint, so as soon as you start taking it off you've got to blend in the layers. Then some corrosion primer, and then some normal filler primer, and then the green, and then the flash over with some fade out thinner. You can see here where's sort of the keyed up area. It's not going to match the old paint, obviously, because it's fresh out of a can. It's a direct gloss, so it doesn't have the best finish. I will be able to give it a flat and polish when it's dried off. But that'll be it for today. Like I say, I've got to focus on work business as well, but I'm just doing little bits anyway. So you just tidy the thing right up, because remember, all these seams were, like I say, all bubbly and crusty and horrible. So we'll just go around the rest of the car doing that. And the last thing I want to do is to try and do it all in one go and then take the car off the road, because it's just too nice to have that about. So done that. Pop the side skirts back on the Smart. If you remember last video, again, if you watch Chops Garage, you'll know what I'm on about. If you don't, Chops Garage is a bit of a blog, so a lot of stuff won't make sense if you've seen earlier videos. Put it back on. Not 100% happy with this Velcro setup. I think it's a little bit thicker than the pins would have been, so it sits a little bit proud. But to be honest, I think even from factory it wouldn't have got much closer than that, because even if you look here, if you push that a little bit more, from factory there'd still be a gap. It's not like it fits perfectly. It's tough though. I mean, it wobbles a little bit like that, but it actually takes quite a lot to pull it off. The double-sided Velcro is really working well, but I think it might put a screw in just either end. If you remember, the reason I can't fix it with something like Tiger Seal is these panels have to come off during servicing, somebody said, if you do a big service, so you don't want them permanently fixed. I did take it for a spin up and down, quickly up and down here. It's not got an MOT at the moment, so I can't take it on the road, but spun it up and down here a bit to see if it moved about or it gave any signs of coming off, but it didn't, so seems to be all right. We've had our subscriber Aid come down, who bought the Suzuki Swift, because that's now had its MOT. Malcolm, Aid wanted this perfect. He wanted it like, look, because he wanted to treat himself for a while after seeing mine on the channel. And he wanted it bang on. We did offer to sell it to him with the paint needing doing, but he'd rather have it all done at once. There was nothing major, remember, no big dents or dinks, but there was scrapes on this bumper here. Malcolm's painted that. There was, I can't remember if there was a scrape on that corner or not. This corner did have a little ding in the wing, and I said to Aid when he bought it that he might have a slight panel gap because the wing was dented in slightly. I said the bumper might sit a little proud on that side. Well, you can see it doesn't at all, because Mount hammer and dollied it straight again and has used next to no filler. You cannot see the blend anywhere. It's impossible to see the blend anywhere. It really is. What I'm doing now is the headlights were a little bit faded, so I'm just giving the headlights a little buff. They're a little bit discoloured up the top here. You couldn't quite see that chrome that clearly. There was a slight discoloration, so I've just been giving the headlights a buff, and then it will get a full valet again. But what Adrian said is, and I'm using his name because he's given me permission to before the GDPR people kick off. He said he's from the Bristol area. I forget the exact area he told me now, but from the Bristol area. He's popped up a couple of times to see the car, make sure he's happy. It's the first time he didn't drive it. Today he drove it. He said that he's more than happy for me to do a video of me driving this, so I can give my opinion on it versus my other one. I intend on doing that at the beginning, but it sold so quickly, and obviously as soon as the car is sold, even if it's not paid for yet, I don't drive it, because I just worry that I could damage it. I don't want to put any more miles in it, any of those things. So as I say, all it's been offered to do is have an MOT and then have the paintwork done. But Adrian actually says, yeah, take it for a drive, let people know what you think. So we're going to do that before the valet, probably tomorrow now is what we'll drive it. But I'm just going to finish buffing off those headlights. Good news as well. Last video we featured some GT Shine here. We coated the Honda in it, which is looking really nice and shiny. Now, a lot of you made a good point to me. So, James, you need to be putting these coatings on when you're machine polishing cars and doing things like wet sanding and end polishing. you need to put some kind of sealant over the top to protect it afterwards, and lock it in, make sure it doesn't get contaminants and that on that freshly cut back paint. Well, the good news is, I said, would GC Shine maybe get involved in the raffles like a lot of other companies have that we do, that benefit charities? They've said, yeah, we're well on board for that. And they said also, would you like us to be supplying you with enough so that every car that you sell out of Chops Garage can get a coating of GT Shine before it goes out the door? Which I really like that idea. So yeah, so we're going to do that. So every car that gets sold by Chops Garage now is going to get a coating of the GT Shine ceramic coating before it goes out. So after I've done all my work on it, because most of the cars get a machine polish of some kind or another, either by hand or just by, like I say, by machine. So yeah, it'd be nice to put a coating on that, and we'll also be able to give away a load of that stuff in there. They actually said they're going to send these two plus the drying towels I got. We haven't tried the drying towel out yet, so we'll try that on something at some point. But yeah, massive thanks. I've got to shout out massive thanks to all these brands. I'll show someone else who's done us a solid as well. Shout out to King Bolan, who have sent us 4. Again, I said, look, they wanted me to try one of these out, and they wanted to pay me to do the demo of it. And I said, well, look, rather than that, send me some out so we can put some in our charity raffles. So they sent me 4 out of their little eDiag mini diagnostics machines. These are ones where you have the app on your phone. I like the idea of these because you can leave it. My missus has got a similar one, and she leaves it plugged in all the time. Because her Jeep throws a code every now and then for emissions. So she has it plugged in all the time, has the app on her phone, and she thinks she's a mechanic now, self-diagnosing whenever she gets a code up, which is normally, I said, emissions. But I think the legend that is Chris uses one of these as well. He's got the app on his phone, one of these, and he swears by it. So we'll give one a little demo, but also we'll be able to give some away in the raffle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop on. We've got the taxi raffle going at the moment, haven't we? Taxi over there. We've got the raffle for the taxi where you can either win the taxi or £1,000 worth of, £950 worth of diagnostics machines. We did a second place prize. I think what we'll do is be able to add a third and fourth prize maybe with a couple of these to that. So it obviously increases everybody's chance of winning something. It just makes the raffles that bit better. Yeah, but I just got to shout a massive thanks out to King Bolan, to Top Don, to Launch. I think we've got another one as well, actually. I didn't buy these, by the way. Adrian bought these in. I keep telling you guys, don't bring Kate when you come to the unit. Yeah, we've got another one here, AutoFix, which is another one we're going to try out. But all these diagnostics machines, we're going to demo them, give our honest opinion on, but we'd also, like I say, be able to include those in future raffles. We've got the Camry coming up. It's going to be the next car, isn't it? We'll talk about that a bit later, maybe in a later video. But yeah, that'll just be able to help us really pad out these raffles and really be able to do even more with them. Looking really strong at the moment. Like I said, I think we're looking to be able to, at the moment, we're going to be roughly over £2,000 is going to be going to the Grand Appeal for the children's the company that helps families who have children, terminally ill children. And what we're going to do as well, let me know your thoughts on this, is I ordered up one of those thermometer things. I thought what we'll do is put it up on the wall here, and we'll start a running total of all the money we donate for the raffles, and keep a running total and have a goal maybe of doing something like £10,000 or something, because we gave about excuse me, £1,600, £1,700 to who was it we gave it to? North Devon Hospice, who were really, really grateful. You saw the email from that earlier. They said they're really struggling for charity money, for donations at the moment. So we'll try and do another one of them. So about 1,700 from them. Like I said, we were over 2,000 on this one. So we'll get a running total. Like I said, it'd be nice to have a target. Maybe 10,000 is too low. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. As always, link for the raffle is down below. I think we've only got a couple of days left to run on it now. Look what Chris just dropped back. Chris is fast becoming a bit of a ledge, isn't it? Well, he always was a ledge, but it's fast becoming a serious legend. Picking these cars up on a transport, taking them away, fixing them and just dropping them back in really timely fashion. It's cracking work. Like I say, I won't be linking him in the description down below because I don't want any of you using him. I've got him fully sorted. He's got the Polo now doing the cam belt on that, but he's dropped back the Corsa. If you remember, we bought this. It was part exchanged to our main dealer friends. Unfortunately, they were not told that it had a head gasket problem, and they don't actually, the salespeople there, which I can kind of understand, aren't supposed to sort of open bonnets and play around under bonnets. They are just supposed to do an appraisal and a short test drive. And yeah, it turned out it had head gasket. If you remember, it was totally mayoed up and the pressure was building in the tank almost immediately. Well, Chris has gone off and done the head gasket. So obviously when we had the head gasket done, we also did, he says we, Chris also did the timing chain and tensioner. So this has now had a head gasket off. It's been skimmed by Moores, put back on with new head bolts, new gasket, new water pump, new timing chain tensioners, and we did new oil and oil filters at the same time. So really all set. It only had 32,000 miles on it, this didn't it? It was low mileage, SE, so it's got all the toys on it. Inside is in really nice condition. So yes, 31,000 miles. Unfortunately, Corsas do that, guys. They're renowned for it. So all it needs now is a machine polish, because it's got some light scratching here, just around the door handles. It doesn't need any paint, I don't believe, which is good at the moment, because we've got Mal fully stocked up doing paint at the moment. Oh, there is some on the back there. I might be able to do that because it's just a corner of a bumper, and blacks aren't too bad to do. The rest of it, get a machine polish on it, as I said, and that'll be a cracking little bit of stock. Just what we need, like I said, as I've sold out of all the small cars. With low mileage like that, it's got full with low mileage like that, should fly. I think it's got a full history as well, isn't it? But the other thing he's dropped back at the same time is the MGB, the Roadster. So this is the one we built with my father-in-law, because he always wanted one. Built in the garage over about, must have been 7-8 years, maybe even longer in the end. There were just a few little snagging things left on it. If you remember, I said the fuel gauge wasn't working quite properly, and we had a clonk from the front when on braking. Phil down at Moore set it up, didn't he? So he's got it running really nicely, and checked it over for me and tightened everything up to make sure that our work was good, because over the course of sort of 7 years, 2 people working on a car, things can be forgotten. Now, so I got Chris to have a look at it to see why we had the knocking on the front wheels. I thought it might be a loose caliper, but it wasn't in the end, which makes sense because obviously Phil went over it. What it is apparently is he thinks the splines are worn on the wire wheels. He thinks the splines on the hubs are worn, sorry. So what's happening is the brakes are stopping the disc, but the wheel's still able to move forward a bit, so it's making that knock. So we need to get some new spline hubs for it. But he has re-shimmed it all, tightened it up, and he says it's a lot better, but he recommends putting new spline hubs on, so he will do. But I'm still going to take it back for my father-in-law for this bank holiday, so he can have a little drive of it, and then when those come in, we'll sort that. He also, if you remember, those who watched the channel for a while, if you remember, it was a bit like a dragster. The back end was high up, wasn't it? And that was because we got parabolic springs, but they were for a rubber bumper car, and we converted this to chrome. So what it was doing, it didn't have the weight of the rubber bumper on the back, which does weigh a blooming ton. So it was sitting a little bit high. Chris fiddled around with some spacers, as well as doing that sender unit in the petrol tank. So you can see now we've got a nice level stance on it, looking really good. So yeah, once the spline hub's in, it'll be good to go. But like I say, I'm going to shut up, as in literally shut my mouth, and shut the garage up, and we'll take the MG home for a spin, put the green one away to let the paint dry off so I can flat and polish that later on. So massive thanks for watching. I hope you're all enjoying this sunshine, getting out there in your toys too. I have some massive news on, I have bought one of my dream cars. I've purchased, not my exact dream car, I couldn't quite afford the exact one I want, but I bought one of my dream cars. It'll be a little while before we get it into stock, but there's some big news coming on that one. So yeah, as always, massive thanks for watching. Enjoy your sunshine, and I'll catch you again soon.